Hi, everyone. We are Varsha, Lindsay, and Caitlin with a Light Legal Immigration Law Firm in Washington, D.C. We completed and provided one video on TPS for Ethiopians, and that was just general information about the process. Now we're going to go over some frequently asked questions that we have received, and we know that a lot of our clients are curious about. And those include things like, can you file if you have an asylum application pending? Can you file for family members? What if you have a removal order? Can you travel? So we're going to touch on those topics very quickly tonight, just to get a little more information out about this process. So Caitlin, can you start us off? And one of the most frequently asked questions we get right now is, can I apply for asylum? Or I'm sorry, can I apply for TPS if my application for asylum is pending with USCIS?
Yes, you can apply for TPS with a pending affirmative asylum case, so an asylum case pending with USCIS. But it might be beneficial for you and it might not. So you want to chat with your attorney about the implications of doing so. For example, if you are granted TPS, but then your application with USCIS is not granted, in normal situations, it would go to immigration court. But if you already have TPS granted, it prevents USCIS from sending your asylum case to the immigration judge for her to give it a new look, for you to get your second chance at asylum. So some people might consider this a good thing, and it might be a bad thing for other people, which is why you should discuss that and any other implications with your lawyer to figure out the timing.
Thank you.
And so the follow-up question is, that's for affirmative asylum applications. So what if I have an asylum application that's pending in immigration court, like I'm in removal proceedings?
Yeah, so if you're in removal proceedings, similarly, if you have an asylum application pending before USCIS or the court, you can still file for TPS. Strategically, if you want to apply for TPS or not is a different question. And one, again, we're talking about with your attorney. The immigration judge can still grant asylum if you have TPS while you're in removal proceedings. The immigration judge may try to administratively close your case before having to make a decision. If you have TPS, I just had this happen recently for a Haitian family, and your attorney then has to take the additional time to write a motion, try to argue with the judge why they should leave it open, or maybe you're okay with that case being closed. On the other hand, you may want to have TPS granted while you're in court so that you can use that as an opportunity to have your removal proceedings canceled. So, for example, if someone doesn't have a very strong asylum case, or if they would rather adjust their status based on marriage, TPS may help them negotiate to have their court case canceled. And so it may work to your advantage. What about, Varsha, though, if you're already through with removal proceedings and you have a removal order, can you apply for TPS then?
Yeah, so the really great thing about TPS is you may be able to apply for TPS if you have a removal order, and you may even have options to reopen your removal proceedings and request that your proceedings be dismissed so that you can file for adjustment of status if you have another basis, like if you're married to a U.S. citizen. So it's a really great opportunity if you do have a removal order, but this is a very complicated process. So there may be issues depending on why you were issued a removal order that may prohibit your TPS application. So it's really important, if you're in this position, to discuss your options with an immigration attorney and have your removal order and information about your case available so they can best guide you.
Yeah, and for someone with a removal order too, if they're still here in the United States, that means they did not exit the United States as ordered. So you have to decide if you want to take the risk of now alerting the US government as to your whereabouts, that you're still in the United States for this temporary status. We don't know how long it will last, so that's worth keeping in mind as well. Strategically, does this work for you? Is this going to be an advantage, or will it put you in the future in more danger. Caitlin, what about family members? Can Ethiopians apply for their family members to get TPS?
Yes, maybe. So if your family members are in the United States with you and they've been in the United States and residing continuously here since October 20th, 2022, then yes. The thing with TPS is that each family member needs his or her own TPS application. So each individual has to qualify on her own. So for example, if you and your wife and your kids are all Ethiopian, then you can all apply for TPS, but you each have to submit your own packet of forms and evidence. So you're submitting separately. However, if let's say you and your kids are Ethiopian, but your wife is from some other country, then you and your Ethiopian kids can apply for TPS, but your wife can't because she doesn't meet the criteria for TPS, in this case being Ethiopian. For family members who are outside of the USA, TPS is not going to provide any relief. There's no possibility for family reunification through TPS. And that's because if you reference back to our overview video, some of the main criteria for TPS are that you're in the United States as of a certain date and continuously residing. So unfortunately, it won't be able to help everyone's family members.
Varsho, what about for people who already have granted asylum? Should they apply for TPS?
So if you've already been granted asylum, I don't really see a huge benefit to applying for TPS. Now, having said that, you may be eligible and still able to apply for TPS, but there aren't any significant benefits to applying. Once you're granted asylum, your asylee status does not expire, and 1 year after being granted asylum, you can apply for a green card, which of course is permanent residency versus temporary protected status. So in my opinion, there's not a huge benefit, but if there's some reason that you have that you think you may need TPS, discuss it with your attorney and we can help you assess whether it would be beneficial or not.
Great, thank you. One of the benefits to TPS that I could see people applying for if they have a pending asylum application, even a very strong one, is that TPS does allow for travel on advanced parole. And it's easier to get advanced parole when you have TPS versus only an asylum application pending. So that's one advantage for applicants to think about when they're trying to decide if they want to file or not. Caitlin, what about a green card? Can you get permanent status or a green card through TPS?
No. Unfortunately, TPS provides no pathway to anything else. It is very, very temporary. So the bonuses are that you will receive a work permit if you apply for it for a limited time, and authorization to remain in the country for a limited time. And sometimes, like you said, you can receive travel authorization. And so in some cases, TPS is renewed. And for certain countries, there's been a history of TPS being renewed for 10, 15 years. So sometimes you will hear about people who have been in the US on TPS for like 15 years, for example, but that's only because it's been reauthorized. So there's still just no pathway to a green card that way. One interesting note, again, a little bit complicated, so something to chat with your attorney about, is that if you're married to a US citizen or a permanent resident, but you can't adjust status in the United States because you entered what lawyers call without inspection, and what other people sometimes say is entering illegally, like you didn't come through a border checkpoint, TPS with the advanced parole that Lindsay mentioned may, after you talk in detail with your lawyer, may be a possibility for you to make yourself eligible to adjust status. So even though it doesn't lead to permanent residency, for a lot of people, there can be really meaningful benefits to it.
Yeah, it could open up other paths, right? That, like you explained, maybe you can get the type of admission that you need in order to adjust. based on some other type of process, but it wouldn't be just because of the TPS. And as we've mentioned quite a few times throughout the video, it is important to work with an attorney. The forms will look deceptively easy, but it's really more about if you qualify, if you fill out the forms correctly, thoroughly, and include the right supporting evidence, because you don't want to risk your filing fees. You don't want to risk a delay, and you certainly don't want to risk a denial, either by mistake or apply if you're not eligible or you have a very low risk of being approved for this. Because if you do apply for it and you're otherwise out of status, if USCIS denies this application, then they may put you into removal proceedings. So you need to know what the risks are before applying, and then make sure that you're taking all steps necessary to ensure that your application will most likely be approved. So we do encourage everyone to work with licensed attorneys. Make sure you're working with someone that you trust, that you're going through all of the processes to think about, am I eligible? Is each step covered? Are all of my bases covered? And otherwise, this is a really excellent opportunity for a lot of Ethiopians who have been living in the US for a short period of time or a long period of time. And we're happy to see this benefit for many of our clients open up. Feel free to contact us. Our phone number and email address is at the bottom of the screen. We can schedule consultations for you to review your eligibility and start getting things prepared for once the benefit goes live and applications are accepted. So thank you very much, everyone, and I hope you have a great evening.